What's that? Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me?
Hey guys, it's Chris here, back in the building with the Week 16 playoff picture, but bear in mind I am going to try and keep the volume down because of the fact that it is kind of late at night, and at the same time my family are kind of low-key sleeping at the minute. So if you guys wonder why am I so quiet in this video, that is the reason why. However, without further ado, let's get started with the Week 16 playoff picture, and at the same time there are numerous changes from last week's playoff picture because there are only two teams in the AFC that sit outside the current playoff spots at the minute that are still in contention, because the Patriots and the Broncos, well, I'm sorry guys, but you're officially eliminated from playoff contention this year. But don't worry, there will be another year. Meanwhile, on the NFC side of affairs, all of the NFC East teams are still very much within the playoff hunt. However, Washington could very much well wrap up the division this weekend and shut off the rest of their division rivals. But at the same time, four teams from the NFC are officially out of playoff contention, and those teams are the Panthers, Falcons, Lions, and last year's NFC representative in the Super Bowl, the San Francisco 49ers, following their loss against the Dallas Cowboys last weekend. So, sorry guys, once again, there's always next year. But I think the 49ers, of all those teams, they're most likely to come back because of the fact that they have been heavily affected with injuries this year. But with a full strength 49ers side, then they could very much well do damage in the NFC West. As always, I'm going to start off with the AFC clinching scenarios because there are two division titles that could be sealed this week, and at the same time, a number one seed in the conference could also be wrapped up by the end of week 16. And the team that can wrap up that number one seed, the Kansas City Chiefs. Even though people will hate against them and say, oh, they've had an easy schedule, but in the NFL, you just got to play what's in front of you. End of story, okay? They might have lost one game all season to the Las Vegas Raiders, but who cares? They're still top of the AFC at the minute, and I'm no Kansas City Chiefs fan. However, they've proven themselves time and time again. However, if they were to clinch the number one seed this weekend, they just need to win or hope for the Steelers or the Bills to lose their games. Meanwhile, in terms of division titles, the Steelers, well, they just need to win or hope that the Browns lose their game. However, the Titans can clinch the AFC South. However, if they win, then they need to hope that the Colts lose this weekend. So both scenarios need to fall in place, otherwise they won't clinch the AFC South title. But at the same time, as you guys have guessed, that if the Titans don't win their game this weekend, then the AFC South divisional race will go down to the final game of the season. Next up, I am going to mention the three teams that can officially clinch a playoff spot this weekend. And as I mentioned, the Titans can officially seal their spot in the playoffs, even though, yes, I did mention that they could win the AFC South title. The Browns can also wrap up a wildcard spot, and at the same time, the Colts could also do so. However, they need to bank on the fact that the Baltimore Ravens and the Miami Dolphins lose their games in order for those three teams to have a chance of making the playoffs officially at the end of week 16. Well, in terms of securing playoff berths, we've also got Washington, as I mentioned. If they win and the New York Giants fail to win this weekend, then the NFC East race, after all this time, will be officially done and dusted, because Washington will not be caught by the end of week 17. If that happens to be the case, the Rams, they can make the playoffs if they happen to win. Likewise with the Buccaneers and the Arizona Cardinals, if they all win. However, with the Cardinals, they need to hope that the Bears fail to win their game this weekend, and then they're officially in this year's playoffs. Moving to my prediction of what would happen if in the event that the playoffs were to end today, we would have the following playoff scenarios at hand. Starting with the AFC wildcards, we'd have the Bills versus the Dolphins, the Steelers versus the Colts. And by the way, the Steelers have been on a very slippery slope in recent weeks, it's fair to say, because they have lost their last 3 games despite going 11-0 through their first 11 games. However, will that affect them come the playoffs? It could very much well be the case. And could they be one and done? Well, you'll find out if I'm saying so. However, moving on, the other AFC wildcard game would be the Titans versus the Browns. Meanwhile, the NFC wildcard games would be the Saints versus the Cardinals, Seahawks versus Buccaneers, and Washington versus the Rams. Of those 6 games, I could see the Bills, the Steelers, and the Titans coming out victors. Meanwhile, in the NFC wildcard games, I think the Saints, Seahawks, and Washington, believe it or not, because I think, even though I do like the Rams, but I'm hoping that they'll cause a shock and beat them in the playoffs. But at the same time, please feel free to disagree with me on that one, because I'm being really odd. And at the same time, I think Alex Smith, if he comes back healthy in the playoffs, he could do some damage and possibly steal a win against the Los Angeles Rams. Anyways, moving on to the divisional round, we've got the Chiefs versus the Titans, Bills versus the Steelers, and we've got Packers versus Washington, and the Saints versus the Seahawks. However, the Chiefs, I think they should win pretty easily. However, between the Bills and the Steelers, even though the Bills had recently just beat the Steelers, I still think that the Steelers have a chance to try and sneak it against them, and they too will advance to the AFC Championship game. Meanwhile, I think the Packers should easily trounce Washington. Sorry to all the Washington fans out there, but Rodgers is just simply on fire, as per usual, and I simply cannot doubt this guy come playoff time. Meanwhile, the Saints versus the Seahawks, Drew Brees versus Russell Wilson. However, I think Wilson will come out on top once again because of the fact that Brees' playoff struggles in the last few seasons have been pretty much clear-cut and evident. So I think that would very much continue. Seahawks to come back to another NFC Championship game. As for the conference championships, Chiefs versus Steelers, I think Chiefs, even though they only lost 1 game this season and they haven't played the Steelers as of yet, Chiefs to win. Meanwhile, Packers versus Seahawks, I think Russell Wilson can cause a massive shock and take down Aaron Rodgers and his Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field and advance to another Super Bowl. Whereas my predicted Super Bowl is much like last week, Chiefs versus Seahawks. However, Chiefs to go back-to-back. Enjoyed the video, guys. If you want to check out my Week 16 predictions, the video is right here. If you want to check out my important message over Christmas, because at the same time, not everyone has it lucky over Christmas, then the video is right here. Obviously, guys, I hope you have a happy Christmas and a very enjoyable New Year, no matter where you are in the world. But as always, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel right here. And until next week, guys, peace out.